Officials in the western Ukrainian city of Lviv say 5 people were injured after rocket strikes hit defense and fuel facilities. The attacks came despite earlier signals from the Kremlin that it was shifting its focus to the Donbas region in the country's east. It's the 3rd time Russian rockets hit strategic targets in Lviv, a city that's been a haven for displaced people since the invasion began.
People scramble for cover as missiles hit Lviv on Saturday. The region had been largely spared major attacks by Russian forces. The sense of safety in the western city now shattered.
So we were inside the epicenter when rocket just came. So yeah, like after that it was the first time, and after a couple of seconds, maybe 30 seconds, second bombing, and everyone left to the shelters.
I said to my friend that Nastya, look at this fire, what it is, and then we heard this sound of the explosion. We tried to hide between the buildings.
When the war broke out in Ukraine, tens of thousands fled to Lviv. It's close to Poland, which is a NATO member. The rocket strikes coincided with U.S. President Joe Biden's visit to Poland. Lviv's mayor says the attacks are a message from the Kremlin.
I think with today's strikes, the aggressor wanted to say hello to President Biden, who is now in Poland, with Lviv just 70 kilometers away. I think the entire world must understand that the threat is extremely serious.
People in Lviv must now decide if the city that was once their refuge is safe enough to stay in.
DW correspondent Fanny Fashar is in Lviv for us. Good morning, Fanny. I'm curious about how you experienced yesterday's missile attacks on Lviv and how the situation is today.
We were in the middle of editing a report when we heard what first seemed like the sound of thunder. Turned out it was one of the first rockets actually that hit Lviv. Felt really close, I have to tell you. It was a very loud bang, and it turns out that this was the fuel depot that was hit, and a few hours later followed by other rockets. Now, when it comes to the exact location, because I'm being asked just how far from where you are, it's really hard to say because the local authorities here, but not only in this state, in any part of Ukraine, actually urge people not to share if they know about the exact location, to, as they say, quote, not to help the enemy, not to help Russia to correct actually what their target may have been in addition, and to prevent casualties. So when it comes to that, people here, the local authorities, are quite concerned about some international media sharing pictures, video. At the same time, of course, they do want the world to know what is happening. So somewhere in between, there lies the truth then what exactly happened. But when it comes to the emotional state of people here in Lviv, they're quite shocked, I have to tell you, the day after. They didn't expect this place that really was promoting itself almost as the last safe haven here in Ukraine is going to experience such heavy rocket attacks as it did yesterday. So the war is coming all too close here as well. Here, just about 60 kilometers, about 60, 70 kilometers from the Polish border.
Funny, you mentioned that Lviv has been a safe haven, the last safe haven, precisely for about 200,000 Ukrainians who fled their homes. But do they still feel safe there?
Compared to where they are from, because there are so many internally displaced people that came here from Kyiv, from Kharkiv, from Kherson, of course, they feel safer than there. But at the same time, of course, you have to imagine that people, they have been staying put for weeks now, trying to figure out their lives. Should they cross the border to Poland? Should they wait, hoping that the war is going to end soon and they can return? So there is this in-between feeling that's further increasing now because of what happened yesterday. There are different reactions and answers, and as a result, we do not even know yet what the impact of yesterday's rockets is going to be on the mental state of people in terms of making that decision to crossing the border, which will add to those 2 million people that already left across the border towards Poland. But all around, nearly 4 million people actually left Ukraine already, and so many more are displaced within the borders. So yeah, when it comes to the situation and the status quo of Lviv that used to be quite safe, that is changing as the strategy of Russia attacking this country is changing as well.
As you well know, Ukrainian President Zelensky has again appealed to Western leaders to send more military hardware, tanks and jets, of course. What is the state of Ukraine's army 1 month into the war?
When you compare the numbers in terms of troops and military, of course, Russia is superior compared to Ukraine. On the other hand, and that shall not be underestimated, people here are quite resistant. I mean, you see people who actually, some of them who return to Ukraine because they want to show resistance, but simply staying here on the ground and telling Russia, we are not going to give up our land. Also, when it comes to our soldiers and the military, they did make some announcement a few days ago that they could make some headway in Kyiv and other parts of Ukraine. The question really is, though, at what price that headway is being made, because at the very same time, people are suffering in Mariupol, in Chernihiv, and so many parts of Ukraine. So the question here really is not just how much more prepared Ukrainian force is, but what that means in terms of fighting against the aggressor, which is superior still compared to Ukraine.
That's DW's Fanny Fashar reporting from Lviv, Ukraine. Many thanks, Fanny. Let's bring in Andrii Osadchuk. He is a member of the Ukrainian Parliament for the opposition party Holos. Welcome, sir. We don't want to disclose your current location or for security reasons, of course, but we understand you've personally traveled back and forth between Kiev and the western part of the country several times now in the past weeks. How is that journey possible right now, and what's it like?
Journey is still difficult, but a little bit more easier than it was 3 weeks ago at the beginning of the Russian attack, because my first travel when I was taking my 3 daughters out of Kyiv took me almost 27 hours by car. Usually this distance is taken by 6 or 7 hours. We reduced the number of checkpoints and block posts all over the country to simplify the movement of cars and mostly humanitarian trucks. But train remain, for the moment, probably the most comfortable and more or less safe option for travel from Kyiv to Western Ukraine. So with car, it's still difficult.
Mr. Osadchuk, given the consistent bombardment that you're experiencing, I'm wondering whether people in the central part of the country have the basic resources they need at this point.
I may comment Kyiv, maybe it's the most interesting for outside world. You know what is interesting? That probably humans still alive in this planet because we are very adaptive. And it looks that Kyiv community almost recover after this emotional shock of the first weeks of bombing. And now Kyiv is living on more or less normal life. I've just received the official report from city administration saying that for today, almost 650 grocery shops are open, 300 cafes are working, so 360 car service stations are working, 33 markets in the city are open. So meaning that Kyiv lives quite normal life, so the traffic is on. I was just traveling throughout the city like a day ago. We try to live more or less a normal life. For the moment, officials say that it's still about 1.5 million people inside of the Kyiv. Before the war, it was more than 3.5 million people.
So essentially, you've got pockets of normalcy amid all of this turmoil. I want to get to another question for you, sir. You posted on social media that, and I'm quoting now, we don't ask the West to die for us, but we ask them to share the responsibility and pay a fair price for this protection. What exactly did you mean by that?
It's very simple. Vladimir Putin is attacking the West. He was threatening the West during decades. He was threatening West with his unacceptance of NATO. He was blaming Ukraine that Ukraine wants to attack Russia because Ukraine wants to join NATO and so on and so forth. Till today, we made a huge damage to Russia. Official report is saying that they lost 582 tanks, 121 jet fighter, 127 helicopters. So it's a huge losses, meaning that we consume properly all the Western military support which we receive. But Putin did not refuse from his plan to destroy Ukraine and to attack the West. And if we all want to save the West and to keep it as is, we want to increase the support to Ukraine because we are on the front line of this war. And we need not just defending weapon, we need attacking weapon because we need to recapture the territories which are currently occupied by Russians. So we need more help to protect West.
Got it. That is Andrii Osadchuk, member of the Ukrainian Parliament. Thank you so much, and of course, stay safe, sir.
Glory to Ukraine.
After a month of war, many have been surprised at the strength of Ukraine's defense. But the human cost of the conflict remains high, with the number of both military and civilian casualties growing by the day. And amid the destruction, people are having to bury their friends and family in the most difficult of circumstances. DW correspondent Emin Esef sent us this story on a slain soldier, Dmytro, from a small village close to the Polish border.
A house fallen silent. He was just 20 years old, hit by Russian artillery on day 3 of the war. It took weeks for his family to learn of his death and bring him home. People from all around came to Dmytro's funeral to honor him.
Дмитро був справжнім козаком.
He was a true Cossack, and he smiled a lot. He was funny, artistic.
Завжди
He always wanted to help everyone.
хотів допомогти.
He loved us all so much. He wanted to keep this family together.
Нас всіх настільки любив. Він був дружнім.
We'll remember him as an amazing person
Ми були завжди разом.
and an amazing brother.
Він запам'ятається для нас всіх чудовою людиною, чудовим братом.
The Vasyutas are a military family. Dmytro's sister said their father is considered by many a hero of the Donbass conflict. It seemed natural that her brother would choose the same path. Dmytro's schoolhouse. His teacher received the news of his death with a mixture of pain and pride. We saw each other for the last time on the 12th of February, and he said, "Okay, goodbye. We'll never see each other again." And I said, "You can't say that." I asked if his death has scared any of the young men in the village who may one day have to face the front lines. Absolutely not. It will give them more courage and strength, maybe even make them angry enough to take on such a responsibility. Now nobody is afraid. It's no longer 2014. Now there's a completely different feeling. In Western Ukraine, we've always seen military service as a responsibility. A duty is a duty. A lesson instilled at a young age here. Theirs is not to reason why. The cemetery where Dmytro is buried. His grave is visible from a distance, and it seems as if it's the very center of the town. A tragedy, but piled high with flowers.